Welcome back to Mac Football Forever. I'm Alex Alvarado. That is Caleb Carter. Welcome back to Offseason Mode, Part 2, where we just kick it. And we talk about, the Mac and what's going on. Kind of keep up with the news wire, but, this is the time for us to relax more than anything.
I am on break from my school job, so kind of relaxing a little bit. So there's that.
You don't have to grade papers. You don't have to mark F.
I don't grade papers, but there's not much to add there without going into the day-to-day stuff. But
teacher stuff, no one cares.
Yeah,
no one cares about that profession.
They really don't, do they?
We just recorded the award show episode, which you'll see in a couple days if you're watching this episode early on. But if not, if it's 2021, go check it out. Go check out the award show if you haven't seen that. But we're going to keep up with the news wire as of Sunday. The 27th is today. What is most pressing on the news wire in your eyes right now?
So we got some bowl game updates. We've got some coaching news, some all-conference, all PFF lists coming out, professional and transfer news. How about we start with David Moore first and foremost, because that's kind of been the saga that's kept a lot of our attention for the last few years now.
Well, what was it about David Moore that was weird? If you're unfamiliar, and what is up with him right now?
So, for folks who kind of followed the saga a little bit, there was a substance that he had claimed that was part of GNC supplements, and he had tested positive the one time, but yet was kind of facing a double jeopardy type situation and was potentially facing another missed season. He appealed it, got it reversed, and then now he comes out more recently and says, you know what? It's been real, Central, going to go pro. So that's where David Moore stands now. They got a transfer in that could end up battling Daniel Richardson for the spot, and quarterback from Washington, whose name is escaping me at the moment. Washington State, yes. But for now, that's kind of like the biggest personnel player news. But there are some transfers too that we'll get into in a little bit. But it opens up what the quarterback room will look like at Central Michigan next year, when Central Michigan should be good enough to compete for the West again.
Yeah, David Moore, he didn't play a lot either. He started his college career, I believe he's a Georgia native, started his college career going to Memphis, played 5 games in 2017. Obviously, I'm blanking on this kid's name too. We're not good at names or looking things up, even though we have the electronics to do so. Pretty much played at Memphis and stayed the starting quarterback that entire time, all the way through this year, even at the ripe age of probably 34, I think. That's a joke. So he left, went to Garden City Community College for a year and spent 2019 with Central as well. But if you remember, he wasn't the quarterback until the starter, Quentin Dormady, who was also an incoming transfer of the same season, beat him out for the starting job for his 1 year there. So he pretty much played half the season. The line of thinking is, okay, he'll have 2020 to start and be the guy. Well, couldn't, because the NCAA said, no, you tested negative for M3 Chernobyl, something like that. And so he only played 6 games with Central, played an entire season of JUCO ball, played only 5 games with Memphis. I'm all for, when guys bet on themselves, right? I'm always there for it, no matter what they choose, I'm sure that they have the most intel of what's best for them, no matter what. But, the David Moore situation, it's just unique, because his future really was in the balance. And I'm sure he's been thinking, no matter what they decide, is 2021 with Central, going to be worth it? Is it going to be worth all the, BS that I put up with? Or is it better for me to just no, I'll be the guy that doesn't have a lot of film, but has a lot of promise, has a lot of athleticism, has a lot of mobility. He doesn't have a lot of film to begin with. How much will NFL teams want to work with a guy like him? Who's to say? But it's just interesting more than anything.
Yeah, and
I've never seen anything like this.
We don't need to get much longer into it, because it's just one of those issues. We could talk about how much film does somebody need, what's really beneficial to sticking around. He chose a decision that he's probably just I'm really done with it. I've got a degree by this point, and just done with it. So that's something I'm sure Central fans will be willing to talk about in the future. We'll be talking about Central quarterback battle come a few months from now. For now, we've already talked it to death, and it's more just hope this works out for him, and we'll be interested to see what happens with David Moore here in the next few months.
Caleb, did you watch any of the Camellia Bowl with Buffalo beating Marshall 17-10? I did not. And so I'm not going to go back and watch it.
I did, and it was pretty underwhelming. Malcolm Kuntz before the game announced he was going to stick out. That was another pro caliber type player who chose to, preserve his safety and well-being and stayed out of it. The Buffalo really didn't need him in the game from all stakes and appearances. Marshall's offense struggled down the stretch of the season. And so it was kind of a matchup of one of the best offenses and scoring wise in college football and FBS college football versus one of the best scoring defenses in college football. The defense won out, as this tends to happen in these types of games, best offense, one of the best defenses, et cetera, et cetera. But Buffalo was the victor on this side, did just enough. Kevin Marks was the workhorse during this game. Jarrett Patterson didn't even dress despite rumors that he was going to try and play. And they eventually talked about it, like James Patterson was quoted as saying, like, it was a family decision to try and preserve his best interests. I can't really blame him there for that. That's just, looking out for, he's going to be able to chance to play pro, and he needs to get better. He needs to get healthy, and he needs to be able to work out for some people. No need to have more wear and tear. And Buffalo got the chance to still end their season on a high note. And despite the fact that, a couple of their better players didn't play, arguably their best defensive player and best offensive player, Buffalo's a well-coached team. They won the game 17-10, scoring in late in the game for the deciding touchdown, and wasn't too exciting. No real fireworks, but Buffalo did the nitty-gritty and got it done and got the MAC another bowl victory.
Like I said, I don't really think I'm going to go back and watch this. Like a low-scoring game like that, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy for everyone that played and ended up, being healthy, and guys like Kevin Marks that got to have more film, James Patterson himself having more film. Jared keeps getting all the attention, and we keep saying Malcolm Kuntz, and this and the other. These guys are all good. James Patterson's incredibly good for Buffalo's defense and deserves respect towards what got Buffalo to the championship game and why they had success over the past couple of seasons. He's as much of a reason as Jarrett Patterson. They just have to do it in different ways, but it's good to see Buffalo, end the season on a high note, because the MAC doesn't really show out in bowl games, and winning a bowl game here just shows that 2020 is crazy.
1-0 on the MAC bowl games this year. We're only going to get 2. So the other one being the Arizona Bowl still on the agenda, Ball State, San Jose State, New Year's Eve. We've talked a little bit about it in the last episode. It's 2 conference champions. It's a Ball State team both teams are still teams that feel like they want to show out on a national level and demonstrate that they've been slept on for some time. So that's the appeal on that matchup. Still excited on some of the type of pro caliber players I think are on both teams. So other than that, not anything I'm super stoked for. It's just a more enticing matchup, I think. So, I mean, anything exciting about that for you?
Johann Seiler's going to be on the field, so
of course
watch that.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
I think that's all there is to it.
One more chance to see Drew Plitt if he doesn't decide to come back, and Justin Hall, another one of those type of guys who I would think would try and play professionally next up. He's kind of done what he's always wanted to do there. Some just a lot of defensive guys who maybe have had their turn come to an end, and they finished on top and they don't want to play after this. So it might be a send-off game for a lot of these Ball State guys. Maybe that's one more reason to pay attention if you're a MAC Knight or if you're a Cardinals fan.
Yeah, and there's also the chance that San Jose State might try to have some fun in claiming a national championship if they just so happen to win. I mean, they've gotten just their name was thrown into the conversation with the seasons that Coastal Carolina and Cincinnati and so on and so forth have had with their undefeated seasons, and they should be more recognized as awesome G5s, right? And Mountain West, and I've talked about it in private before with some friends, but Mountain West kind of gets the low end of the stick, kind of the same way the MAC does, but it's the MAC of the West Coast. People go no one watches the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 because everyone's asleep by then, blah blah blah. The Mountain West, same boat, kind of. with dealing with the same problems, even more so. And for them to be an unlikely candidate to win its own league, just like Ball State did, albeit this one had an undefeated season so far. It'll be fun to see like what kind of fun they have with if they do come through and beat a very tough and pesky Ball State squad.
It's very, very much in this game we're highlighting two teams that don't have the recent history that broke through and won conference championships this year. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
Under Brennan, this is his fourth year as the coach of San Jose State. They never won more than 5 games. That kind of sounds like Ball State to me, where Ball State would not break through, would win a few games in the non-conference, only a few games in the MAC, and then would fade, or just never ripped off a bunch of wins. And Ball State did something similar. San Jose did something similar and has surged up. And now they've reached an AP, a school record AP high of ranked 19th. So that's pretty cool for the program, a program that really has had no success. So it is an appealing matchup.
Hey, let's move on to some coaching news, AKA additional propaganda for white people. And a lot of the coaching news, we talked about how Miami lost an offensive coordinator. In this past week, Will Windham of Kent State, who was a positions coach on Kent State's defense, moved closer to home in South Alabama. He's from Mississippi and went to Mississippi State. He's going to be a defensive positions coach for South Alabama. So that's a move for him. But even more so in guys that you've actually heard of, former MAC coaches, head coaches rather, one of them an interim coach at one time. Butch Jones, formerly of Central Michigan, blah, 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 is now at Arkansas State as the head coach. Bo Pelini, who was an interim coach for Bowling Green once upon a time. He was let go from LSU. Everyone saw that coming. Terry Bowden is a head coach again.
He reemerges
at UL Monroe. And more white guy news. Pete Lembo, former head coach of Ball State. He's at South Carolina as an associate head coach. That's his 4th job since he left Ball State. And at first, when I said that number to you in DMs, Caleb, I was like, I don't know if I'm exaggerating or not, but that feels right. I'm exactly right. The job after that, he was at Maryland, then at Rice, then at Memphis, and now at South Carolina.
Yeah. He's just, he's a lifelong coach, and he takes jobs wherever, and it's a fit, and just takes off and leaves. So
who's your favorite? But who's your favorite white guy of the bunch?
How could you not go with Terry Bowden? He's the most likable of them.
That's so weird, man.
He's that move to me says we just want somebody who's established in this part of the country, and someone we can someone to rely on, or someone that we can rely on to get us back to 6 or 7 wins, get them back to respectability, so that
and still enjoy his job tomorrow.
Yeah, and then also go get a better coach in 5 years.
It's a lot closer to his roots and where he's from and the people he knows and stuff, Yeah. And he did. It's weird to think that he was an intern or a GA rather at Clemson.
He's a collector of life experiences, Alex.
That he is. Yeah, I think. To me that was the oddest move. Even if I just don't think about it in max terms, but it's just. I don't know, man. He's in his 60s and it's a struggling program. That felt like the type of program where I felt like they would have gone after. And of course, I don't know the state of Louisiana, let alone UL Monroe, all that well. I can't get into it. But still, even from my chair up here in the blizzardy cold Michigan state, that's a weird move. I kind of felt like they would have gone after, someone younger, someone
young coach with the first FBS coaching job. Yeah. I think it's kind of work. I think some
flair.
I think it's likely to work for Akron, and we're talking about Akron. So I think for more than anything, it's just get the program back to respectability, and the Bowden name has meaning and recruiting ability in the South. So can't blame him for making the move for sure.
Maybe. I'd really like to see what kind of pull he actually has. That's going to be an interesting internet search a year from now. What is UL Monroe's recruiting rankings for 2021?
Yeah, it's more. I don't know that I would expect them to just be really high in the rankings, just so much as he should be able to get the types of kids that he wants from the South. Not necessarily Like he was at Akron, you never asked him to be top 60 in the country in recruiting.
Mhm.
You get the type of kids that work for your program. And if he's already got those Southern connections, because he's lived in the South most of his life and kept those connections, I would assume, from his days coaching in, even in Akron still, obviously coaching in Power 5 conference football before.
Yeah,
then
all experience matters.
All go. Like it's all go. You're UL Monroe, you're a job that's not super desirable. Like, let's be real. This program has fallen on really hard times.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, maybe it was desirable. Right now, no. Bowden is a great stability hire. And I am actually super curious to see if, it brings some legitimacy to them within the first 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. The Terry Bowden thing is, it is what it is. And of course we'll see more white guys in the news later. Don't worry. We will keep you posted. Let's wrap things up with just a little bit of transfer news. We don't have too much. We'll paint a larger picture for all of the roster moves later. We're kind of just like hanging out at the end of the year. But as far as transfer news go, we have 2 names that we kind of want to list off: a player coming into the MAC and a player that officially left the MAC for another school. You could say that he moved up. Let's start with Danny Godlewski, who left Miami to Okie State. He is now going to be a center or whatever they want him to be along the Oklahoma State offensive line. He's not going to be blocking for Chubba Hubbard. He's gone, but he will be in a state that, he's going to be in a fairly fun offense. He's going to, get probably better coaching. His offensive line coach left Miami, so he's going to have a new experience there. What do you make of that move for the 2-time third-team All-MAC recipient?
I mean, I get the sense that he's possibly getting the chance to live out a Power 5 conference dream. He, not super satisfying season with Miami this last year, and there was already the possibility for a couple of those guys to transfer before, and it's a chance to get more eyes on you. There are going to be more pro scouts at these games. It's show out in a bigger way on a higher level, and so it's probably he just saw a chance to go and do something. You think back to like Jack Heflin being NIU's best defensive player and still going to Iowa because there was a chance to live out a dream of playing. And really, it was for him. It was basically just he grew up an Iowa fan. He wanted to be that. I can't speak to what Godlewski's mindset was, but maybe it was just he had always wanted to play at that level, and he's won a championship. He's done what he wanted to do at Miami. So props to him for going to try something else. Miami's going to hurt a little bit with the guys they lost on the offensive line, but it sounds like they're in good shape for the most part. So that's kind of just where I'm at with Godlewski to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, and again, as I said last week, he was one of the 3 guys that was going to pull out early to go to the NFL instead if, there was going to be no college football this year. So he definitely wants to go in that direction. And this, spending a sabbatical in Stillwater is going to, it's going to be his experience, and that's going to be his 1 year with the big guys before he gets to the bigger guys. NIU is bringing in a transfer quarterback. Have you ever heard that before?
No, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Who is it this time though?
So Rocky Lombardi is one of the bigger transfer names so far, not because he's like the best quarterback in the country to move schools.
But his name is Rocky Lombardi.
I mean, it's the coolest name to go in the transfer portal. He's a fairly athletic guy. I mean, he's a high school multi-sport athlete. NIU loves his freaking guys who've played multiple sports. He was a wrestler in Illinois or in Iowa when I lived in Iowa. So I heard his name a lot when I was out there. Big quarterback, good size.
Strong arm.
Moves decently well. For the MAC, he'd be considered a mobile quarterback, definitely. But I don't know.
More interceptions than touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
Without
let's
being
speed that up.
Was that just offensively some real duds? And I know like Indiana was good this year, but just a blank of a game against Indiana. Some games where he obviously didn't hit his target or do what that Mel Tucker staff wanted him to do. He got pulled, and by the end of the year, a guy who Michigan State flipped from Western ended up superseding Lombardi, who is your starting quarterback at this level. I mean, for NIU, it's got to feel like a big pickup no matter what. They're stoked about it if you're an NIU fan because you hear Big Ten quarterback. And I think he's absolutely going to have the potential to be a really solid quarterback in the conference. for them, it just kind of reeks of like a move that's like, we need solidity. We need to know we're going to be good at quarterback this year. They don't really know what Fletcher's going to be like this year. I think they're very optimistic that Fletcher's their quarterback of the future, but can you say that about next year? And so bringing in Lombardi is another situation where you can tout the quarterback competition. You can count the ability for them to push each other in the room, in the quarterback room. And so I'm very interested to see what it's going to look like. But if they're in win now mode, then yeah, it makes plenty of sense. They go and get a Big Ten quarterback.
Yeah, they should always, they're in a position where like they should always be bringing in new quarterbacks every year. And I think almost all MAC teams should be doing that. I don't know if it's going to pan out. He's definitely someone that has a lot of potential, but it's now NIU's job to maximize it for him. It's on them to do it. And, they brought in a lot of transfer quarterbacks, heading into this year or to this past season.
Yeah.
Hardly any of them really saw the field. It was mostly Ross Bowers doing everything. Let's see what they do with those guys, plus Dustin Fletcher, who they were so high on in Hammock's first recruiting class out of Flint, Michigan, and what they do with Lombardi and what they, just see how it all gels. It's what isn't this Hammock's third year?
Yeah.
So let's see how far downfield they can throw this thing.
Stop. Yeah, you can no longer kick the can down the field. And there's going to be more transfer news in the coming days. I know that like by the time anybody hears this episode, it's going to be like, oh, all right, time to add to that. But we'll get to more big time transfers and positional coaching changes, I'm sure, in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for watching. Follow us, subscribe, blah 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 blah, and watch the award show when that comes out. Bye.
See ya.